So, Tim, in a recent blog you wrote titled Rethinking Church After COVID, you talked about the possibility of churches emerging from COVID with less of a focus about coming to church and more of a focus of being the church. In this article, you cite 17 expectations of someone sitting in the pews that they may be feeling or experiencing or hearing directly from their church. As I read those, my heart began to beat faster. My chest began to tighten a little bit as I thought about those realities. I don't think I'm alone. So you've been in this executive pastor seat for a while, and you held up this prospect of an image where the church was less about coming to the church and more about being the church. Uh, How has your thinking evolved on that, and where you landed right now?
Yeah, it's something back in my days at Granger when Joel and I were working together on some projects there that we were talking about. This was back like 2010, 2011, just started, beginning to sense the fact that no longer was the weekend service the inspiration station that everyone's going to flock to and you invite your friends, and that less and less and that was happening, that there were these other front porch opportunities, meeting people in the community, serving along beside them, inviting them to a small group function at your house, those kinds of things, where people were exploring their spirituality outside of the church, even growing in their faith outside of the church. We've seen all the surveys about the nuns, NES folks, people that are exploring Jesus, but not through church context. So whatever was happening just like accelerated huge in the last 6 months, because even your regular faithful every week churchgoers have realized in the last 6 months to some degree, I don't need to go to grow my faith. Like I've been fine, and I'm sure some have struggled, but I mean, there's a large sense of like, I'm fine. Like, so what is going to be the compelling thing to get them back, and what does even get them back mean? How do we measure that? We used to measure, based on weekly church attendance. Then we got to the point where we realized a few years ago, well, most people only come at like 1.7 times a month. And so, you do these multiplication factors, and it's like, we have 4,000 regular weekly, so we must be a church of 7,200 or whatever it is. Post COVID, I don't even know how we count that, and I'm not even sure if we should, or if that's the most important factor. I used to get frustrated with churches because it seemed like as they were growing, they would submit all their numbers to, the outreach top whatever list, and they were pretty excited about telling you the numbers. And then when they stabilized or started plateauing, they'd be like, "Oh, numbers don't really matter to us anymore. we're more concerned about whatever engagement." But I don't know that frustrates them anymore, because I think churches should be growing. They should be reaching more people. It's just, we're going to have to think about it differently. We're going to count differently. And so this idea of, be the church versus go to church, I think to whatever degree church attendance and involvement motivates you and engages you in people's lives and making a difference, then that's great. But I see a lot of people where it actually doesn't. It motivates them to be sedentary and to kind of listen and to take it all in, and it really doesn't do anything to motivate them and engage them in people's lives and make a difference in the day to day. And that's what I'd love to see. As we that's kind of what I think about behind, be the church, just not go to church. And so how do we equip our people, even if maybe they're only going to come every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever? How do we engage and equip them in a way that we can still communicate with them and get to them and equip them and train them, but we're motivating them to make a difference in their day-to-day lives?
So I'm imagining that in your setting, your digital strategy is going to be a big part of that, staying in front of people while they may not be physically in front of you. Can you talk to us a little bit about where you would at least like to see that go at Willow?
We're dreaming about that, and that's actually we. It's probably one of the most common topics of all of our weekly meetings. Where we don't have anyone currently on staff that's focused on that. I think Will has been a little bit behind the 8 ball in the digital strategy. Got caught up a bit during COVID, but we're like, if it's a 10 scale of success, we're at about a 2 on that right now. But realizing that that's got to be where we're going. So the way Dave Dunn, our senior pastor, talks about it, he said, as he's talking to the people at Willow, he says, for years, we've spent millions of dollars to reach thousands of people. We need to figure out ways to spend thousands of dollars to reach millions of people through digital. And I think it's equipping our people, it's equipping our group leaders, it's online church. People have been doing that for a decade and a half now. So it's figuring out ways to do that better and better and better. And it's reaching the people that are never going to step foot and being okay with that. There's this term that I heard recently, phygital, physical and digital, and it's a term that came out of the retail world, where this was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They were talking about places like Amazon. This is before Amazon bought Whole Foods. They said that places like Amazon were digital only, like they just served you digitally. They weren't trying to get you to go anywhere except on their website and apps. And then there were places that, in this example was related to Macy's, where Macy's is like brick and mortar, and they're trying to get you into their stores. And a place like Macy's might have a website, but their whole website's to try to get you into the stores. They were saying the retail organizations that were going to be best equipped for the future would be places, they mentioned Target and Walmart, to where if you're at Walmart online, they're not trying to get you to the physical stores. And if you're at Walmart in a store, they're not trying to get you to the website. They're serving you where you're at. And I think for a number of years, churches have used online to give you a taste of the weekend so you can come to the weekend, or because you're on vacation, to give you a sense of being there when you're not. We're thinking it's more than that. It's how do we reach people that are never going to come, that maybe don't even live in our region, that aren't going to connect to a local church in their region, but we're still going to make a difference in their lives. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. We're looking for that person right now to help us. We figure they're probably 17 years old or something. I don't know. They're probably one of our grandkids, but we're trying to find them to help us develop that strategy.
So if you're speaking to a pastor who shares your vision of less at church, more being the church, what one recommendation would you give them?
What one recommendation? I would say, this may not be real tangible, so go with me on this, but I would say for pastors, a lot of calls to action out of sermons are related to things, come back here for a class, serve here in our, children's ministry, come back here for the men's retreat. And I think if more of our calls to actions could be go and serve, go and be, that would be pretty cool. So example with that would be a couple call to actions just the last couple weeks at Willow. One was related to, we were talking about Jesus, the greatest teacher. And so a call to action at the end of that sermon was, go do something great for a teacher of your kids, a teacher in your community. Go buy them something, go take them to dinner, go tell them they're special. Kind of a go and be kind of call to action. We did something similar a few weeks before that with just, tipping your server, tipping your waiter, your waitress. Just kind of the go and be, very simple, very easy kinds of things, baby step kind of things. But I think more of that versus just the church focused kind of jump back into what we have going on here at the building.
So let's close up this today. What are you most excited about at Willow? You guys have got a crisis of COVID. You've got a crisis or you've lived through a crisis in leadership. People say, don't waste a good crisis. What are you guys doing to take advantage of the malleability that exists only in settings like this?
Yeah, I think COVID gives an opportunity, and especially, from the time we last had services, which was, I think, the first weekend of March, to the time we actually have physical services again, which could be next March. We don't have a date yet. So it could be a year. I think it gives you a lot of opportunity coming into a church that's 45 years old and it has a lot of complexity and a lot of programs. It gives you an opportunity to look at a lot of those things and decide, okay, because it'll be post-COVID, it'll be a brand new world. And because we're not sure those things were accomplishing our objectives before, what are we going to move forward and keep doing? It would have been very hard maybe to kill a program that's happening Sunday to Sunday to Sunday from one Sunday to the next. But when you haven't been doing it for a year, it's a whole lot easier to come in and evaluate that. So I think there's some of that. I don't know that that's the exciting part. I think the exciting part right now would be, this is like a church plant with a core group of 20,000 people and several buildings. But the opportunity to set vision and values, like you would a church plant, like who are we going to be about? What are we going to be about? To kind of set that from the ground, to be able to build an entire leadership team pretty much from scratch. And to set a course for, the impact and the multiplication and reaching more people for Christ. That's exciting. That's kind of fun. It's hugely complex because it's not 20 people in a core group, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited about that.
Well, Tim, thank you for sharing your insights today. We look forward to checking back in and seeing as your thinking progresses, that you would share that with us. So I appreciate you being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.